Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk. Whoa! Clap, 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 clap. Okay, so this session is our first Let's Talk that's recorded. Strange, and it's also our first one that we're doing it in person next to our partner. Also strange. And I think the strangest of all is that today we have an amazing guest. Her name is Mbali, and as you can see in the recording, she's next to us. So yes, let me introduce Mbali. So Mbali is Her Royal Highness Mbali Mahlangu is the daughter of late Indabella King His Majesty Mayinja III and Indabella Queen Mother Her Royal Highness Gabisile Mabona. Mbali is an entrepreneur, speaker, and blogger. She's a young 28-year-old lady who lives on purpose and seeks to love, inspire, and lead and develop people. She enjoys creating atmospheres where people are encouraged to be their authentic selves and to not conform. She is also the owner and managing director of Isiba Le Africa and Isiba Moments, which both are companies. And she has shared stages with young and old business people, influential leaders, and sought-after speakers. She also has a YouTube channel where she posts personal development and entrepreneurship content. And basically, all that means is that Mbali is a pretty big deal. But of course, that's not all. But I don't want to keep going. Mbali, would you like to introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I think I want to start off by saying thank you to all of you for this opportunity. You just mentioned that I'm a big deal, but honestly, more than anything, I think you guys are a big deal for showing up, for being here, for organizing this, and for interviewing me. So I want to say thank you and well done. So a little bit about me, because you've done all of the formal, very fancy introduction, I will tell you things personal about myself that maybe not everyone might know. So I come from a big family. I'm actually one of 20 siblings. I've got 19 brothers and sisters. And on the long list of brothers and sisters, I'm number 18. So there's just two more after me, and then there's 20, right? So that's one thing about me that I like to tell people, because I think it's fun to know not everyone in the world is walking around with 19 siblings. And another thing about me is that everyone in my life will tell you that they are most likely to hear me before they see me. So when I walk in, I'm like, I never really have an issue with like talking on a Zoom or talking on stage, because I just naturally have such a loud voice. And it doesn't matter how much I try to like behave, I will say behave. I'll start off soft. So I would tell myself, today I'm going to speak softly. And I would start off soft, and then as the day goes or as the meeting goes, I'll go on speaking louder and louder and louder. And I think that could also possibly be because I've got 19 siblings. And I think if you are 19 people in the house, if you don't speak up, you are not going to be heard. So yeah, those are two things about me. Let me tell you one more thing about myself. I love being busy. Like, I absolutely love being busy. So I've gotten this new thing where I'm like, I'm not gonna be busy. It's not worth being busy. Just have an easy life. Relax. Don't do so much. But I will start off slow, and then I'll just get it. Like, I just love being busy. I love going from one meeting to the next. I always want to have things going on. Currently, I'm in my season in Cape Town. So during the year, I'm at different places, and I'm currently in Cape Town, the Western Cape. And literally every 3 days, I'm at a different person's house. I have a long list of people that I want to visit and have coffee with. And every day, I always have a million things to do, and I absolutely love it. So those are three things about me that are not, I think everyone knows.
Can I ask one question? I'm pretty sure this isn't on the internet, but what's the biggest, your first sibling from you, what's the age gap?
Oh, so she's my oldest sibling is probably approaching her 50s, and I'm 28. Who's gonna count that? I think that's a good 20-year gap.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yes. So I think my eldest sibling is probably, mid 40s, approaching her 50s.
Wow.
And my youngest one is the same age as you guys. She's 16.
Oh, wow.
I love your energy. I feel like you would be like such a fun person to hang out with because you're really like energetic. I love it. So
Thank you.
let's hop into today's topics. The title is The Bird Who Lived Like a Chicken. It's relating to limiting beliefs. So I thought it was really cute because Derrick brought up that it reminded him of a fairy tale.
I'm not sure if you heard of this fairy tale before. It's called The Ugly Duckling. Have you heard of it before? I mean, I'd say it's not that related because it's about an ugly duck that turned into like a beautiful swan or something. But I think it can be applied to today's topic, which is related to limiting beliefs.
So it caught my attention because it's like it took me some time to figure out what it means because there's like a meaning to it, but it's not giving the full meaning. So it's like a tease. It makes me crave into it more. Yeah.
Also, because I want to share what we thought about it initially. Because the title itself is not really like what Mitchell said, it's not super direct. It's about a bird that lives like a chicken. So what we agreed on before this interview is that it means like if you're a bird, you're capable of so much more, but you end up limiting yourself because of limiting beliefs and so on and so forth, that you live like a chicken.
Yeah. So to me, I thought it's like a bird not knowing its own capability, so it just lives like a chicken. So it's like wasted talents. Yeah. So we would like to know what do you think about the title?
You guys are absolutely correct. The topic that I gave it was a bird that lived like a chicken, and you're right. It's a bird that lives like a chicken because they don't know who they are, they don't know their capabilities, and they might not necessarily know that there is so much more for them. The official definition of a limiting belief is a state of mind or a belief about yourself that restricts you in some way. Everyone experiences limiting beliefs, but learning how to identify them can help you to proactively prevent these limiting beliefs. So another thing that a person might not know is that absolutely everyone experiences limiting beliefs, from the former president Barack Obama to Beyonce, to myself, to you guys, your teachers, your parents. Every single one experiences limiting beliefs, and limiting beliefs are merely just a state of mind and this belief that you have in your mind that actually ends up stopping you from doing what you want to do, stopping you from what you need to do, or stopping you from really stepping into your full potential. So you are right. That is, you definitely understand, what the concept of limiting beliefs is.
Just to zoom in more on what you mentioned, you mentioned something about how everyone has limiting beliefs, but you also said that the most important skill is to be able to identify it, right? So how would you identify and deal with your limiting beliefs? Or how would you recommend someone to go about it?
Yes, all right. So it starts off by first and foremost knowing that everyone has limiting beliefs. And if everyone has limiting beliefs, then you are most likely also going to have limiting beliefs. So that's one, knowing that there is such a thing as limiting beliefs, right? And then the second thing is slowing down enough to be self-aware. I don't know if maybe you guys know about the concept of being self-aware, but self-aware talks about knowing when you've done wrong, knowing when you've done right, knowing what you like, what you don't like, being very intuitive. You know, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you're about to do something, or you move something and you feel like no one has to tell you, but you just feel it within you that something is not right. Have you ever had that feeling? So that's intuition, where it's deep within your heart, and it almost you can almost sometimes miss it, but you're just about to do something, or you do something and then you just feel that wasn't right. So the second point is to be self-aware, to listen to the whispers of your life and to listen to the whispers of you and who you are. So that is how you can identify a limiting belief, is by being self-aware, slowing down enough to be self-aware. And the third thing is knowing your identity. All of us are different, and all of us have certain characteristics, and knowing what you like and don't like, how you are and how you're not, knowing where you're going, where you are and where you've been, is very important to identifying a limiting belief. For example, when I talk about knowing who you are, I have a life experience of, I was born essentially with a silver spoon in my life. By the time I was born, my father as a king was doing quite well for himself. He had started many businesses and really had established himself and the kingdom. And then when I was 11, my father, the king, passed away, right? And the following months after that, we lost absolutely everything. Everything that he had worked so hard to build was stolen by people around us, business associates, family, and the family itself, which is very big, started fighting, and unfortunately we lost everything that he'd built up material-wise. So we then started to obviously struggle as a family, and really personally, I really began to struggle because I now had to change the type of schools that I would go to. So I was used to a certain type of school, and now I started being restricted to certain types of school. And where I was used to getting a certain amount of allowance, I was now not getting that allowance. So things like that. And throughout that time, I started to develop a limiting belief in terms of money. I started to really view money as this big thing that is far to attain, right? So because I know myself and the experiences that I've had and the experiences that I've gone through in that particular experience, anytime I am coming across anything that might restrict me in terms of finances, I know it is based on that experience that I've gone through. Am I making sense? So it's about knowing who you are and knowing your life, where you've been, where you are, and where you're going. And the experiences that you've gone through will essentially, knowing the experiences that you've gone through and what that made you feel like and what that left in you will then help you to identify limiting beliefs. So that's three things: knowing that there's limiting beliefs, being self-aware, knowing who you are, and knowing where you've been, where you are, and where you're going. And the fourth thing is where you can identify limiting beliefs is when you become very serious about personal development. What personal development is personal development is a state at which you are dedicated and committed to always growing. The more you know, the better you will do. So if you don't know that there's there's such a thing as limiting beliefs, you're going to live a life constantly limiting yourself and not knowing that you're limiting yourself because you don't know that there is such a thing as limiting beliefs. So personal development expands you and it grows you, and it allows you to be the type of person who realizes when you are holding yourself back. right? So that's the fourth thing. And then the fifth thing that can help you to identify limiting beliefs is the people around you, your teachers, your friends, and so forth, having that accountability structure. When you do, like, for example, yes, a good example is when I wanted to be on TV. And I thought to myself, you know what, never mind, my English is not great. You know, maybe I'll just settle for, making my YouTube videos, because when I'm on YouTube, no one can tell me about my English because that's my YouTube space, right? Whereas TV, it's the world's YouTube space. I mean, it's the world's space, and you have to show up a certain way. Yet my family and friends are always affirming me. They're always telling me, Mbali, why aren't you going for this thing? You're great at it. Or why aren't you applying for this? Have you applied for this? So them seeing greatness in me is constantly forcing me to see that I'm holding myself back, right? So yes, so those are the 5 ways in which you can identify limiting beliefs. Is one, if you are constantly making excuses for the things you want to do but don't do. And you will see those as you go along with the 5 things that I've mentioned.
That was a lot of things.
So, would you say having limiting beliefs are important? Since you said it's a sense of intuition, so do you think it's important to have at least some limiting beliefs?
Sorry?
Do you think having some limiting beliefs are important, because you said it's a sense of your intuition?
No, I don't think that we have limiting beliefs. I think that we constantly should be fighting our limiting beliefs. Not fighting sounds so bad, but I feel like we should constantly be opposing our limiting beliefs. We should really be constantly checking the different things that we are involved in, and checking if there are any limiting beliefs. So another thing about limiting beliefs is that a lot of times it will show up as something that is really clever, or it will sound very reasonable. So for example, I make this example. So if you need to be a model or Miss Universe, as I think Ming Cheng should be the next Miss Universe. So let's say I wasn't able to quite see your height, but let's say I say to Ming Chen, I really think you should, apply for Miss Malaysia and then go and become Miss Universe. And then she says, but no, I'm too short for that, or something like that. So that sounds really reasonable. That sounds like a clever reason why she shouldn't apply for Miss Malaysia, and why she shouldn't become the next Miss Universe, because essentially we all think that a Miss Universe needs to be tall. It sounds clever, it sounds reasonable, but ultimately, if that's what you're passionate about and you believe you can add value to Miss Universe and you want to do it, the fact that you are short is not a good enough reason. Do you know what I'm saying? So a lot of times limiting beliefs will sound clever, and mainly because a lot of times they are rooted in deep fears that we have. So our brain is constantly trying to protect us, and because it's constantly trying to protect us, it will tell us these things, and then we'll be like, okay, we'll listen to our brain because we also don't want to be hurt. But a lot of times our brain judges something a lot harsher than it is. It will tell you, you're short, don't apply, because it's trying to protect you. But it doesn't have to protect you in that instance, because the worst that can happen is that you don't win, and then you can always apply next year, or you can always restructure and think about a different dream that gives you the same feeling and gives you the same fulfillment, right? So limiting beliefs is not your intuition, but if you listen to your intuition, you will know the difference between this is a fear that is valid, and this is a fear that is just a fear that I need to push to the side and move forward.
So your intuition is more like a tool that you can use to identify limiting beliefs. And also your
Absolutely.
experiences and everything experiences your friends will help you point towards that limiting belief that you have, so you can help identify it.
Would you say limiting beliefs are like standards? Because I feel like the society is like a big limiting beliefs. There's a lot of like, oh, you have to follow these kind of standards to like fit in or to be accepted.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have actually put it so right. Society is one big limiting belief, actually, because they tell young men that you cannot cry because otherwise you're weak. They tell young ladies you need to look like Heidi Klum because otherwise you are not pretty enough. You need to look like a model because otherwise you're not pretty enough. So it's like it's like one big limiting belief to live in a society or to be part of this world. And one has to really recognize the difference between I'm feeling scared because this could actually physically harm me, and this could really be very bad for me, or I'm feeling scared because it feels like it's going to harm me, but it's not really going to harm me. One needs to know the difference between a standard to aim for and push past, and a standard that's been placed there to push you back. So limiting beliefs I wouldn't necessarily say are standards, but a lot of times in the world, they put them as a standard. And you need to know the difference between a standard that's a limiting belief and a standard that is a bar that you need to aim towards.
I think I like what you said. You mentioned about limiting beliefs like too short to be Miss Universe, I can't cry because I'm a young man, stuff like that. But I actually want to ask you a question on the more personal side of things. What is your biggest what was your biggest what's the word? Limiting belief? Yeah.
So I've got quite a few. Sure. And I'm glad that I know that I've got quite a few, because that helps me to be able to deal with them. So my first limiting belief is maybe the one that I just mentioned earlier on in terms of money. So I want to have a broad and a big life, right? And I want to have a big life in terms of material goods as well. Why I want to have material goods and I want to have resources is because I've got big dreams of changing the whole of Africa. I want to build homes for people. I want to feed people. I want to take children to school. I want to build hospitals. I want to build schools. I want to build roads. I want to take care of the widows. I literally want to do it. I want to supply Africa with electricity, or the parts of Africa that don't have electricity. I want to make sure they get electricity, they get water and sanitation, all of those things. Those are my dreams, right? All of those dreams require resources. And one of my limiting beliefs that I constantly have to be fighting is this feeling of me wanting to have money and financial wealth is not me being selfish. Do you guys, maybe do anyone between the two of you ever feel like because you want to have money or because you want to have resources, you're being selfish?
I wouldn't say it's always towards, I think with money, maybe not, because I'm too young to be earning money anyway. But sometimes it's like when it comes to stuff like, I don't know, getting help from a friend, but in that case, that friend can't help other people's friend, makes me feel kind of selfish too. But I guess you can say it was working towards a bigger goal for myself.
Yeah, so it's things like when I'm, for example, currently my phone is a great phone, really doing me very well. I'm grateful for it, but it's not enough. I need the best of the best because I want to be making videos. And every time I try to aim for a bigger phone or a better laptop, I think to myself, but there are children out there who don't even have food. That's a limiting belief, because me having a laptop does not take away from them. Because if I look at it clearly, me having the best laptop can help me do things better and faster, get more, so that I can then help them. So that's one of my limiting beliefs, is the feeling or the idea that me having takes away from someone else. And that is obviously an incorrect belief, because the more I have, the more I can give. If you don't have bread to eat, you cannot give anyone else bread to eat, because you both don't have bread to eat. I at least have to have bread to eat so that I can then share my bread with someone else. So that's my first limiting belief that I'm constantly fighting. And then my other limiting belief is the concept of being young, the concept of being female, and the concept of being Black, as opposed to, or Black African, as opposed to being white or Caucasian. I don't know if this is something that you guys deal with a lot in, or race. This is something that you deal with a lot in Malaysia, but that is something that we deal a lot with in South Africa or on the African continent, is this constant feeling of, just because I am Black or my race, I'm, certain places are not for me, or just because I'm female, I need to hold back in certain ways, or just because I'm young, I need to hold back in certain ways. So another example I can give with this limiting belief is, a few years back, I got invited to speak and to coach a company of financial people in the financial sector. So these are accountants, financial advisors, men and women that are really doing well. But if I looked at the company, it was older white men who are very established, have lots more money than I do, and have families, have just, in terms of what success looks like, have a lot more than I do. And I get this email to come speak and to coach them. And I thought to myself, why would they ask me? I'm young to begin with, so I don't have all of that experience. I'm a woman and I am Black. Why would they ask me? So I was able to recognize that that is a limiting belief. This concept that just because I'm young, I'm female, and I'm Black, that puts me back in some way. And then I immediately emailed them back and I said, of course, I would love to come speak. And I went and I spoke and I amazed all of them. But can you imagine if I'd held myself back because I'm young, I'm female, and I'm Black? So that's another limiting belief that I'm constantly having to fight, is asking myself, am I good enough just because I know I'm those things? I want to give you 3 limiting beliefs. What's my other limiting belief? A good one, because it's not just about career and career success. Another limiting belief is that I have, is in terms of love, and my feeling loved, or feeling like I'm not necessarily, or feeling that I'm difficult to love. I don't know if you guys would understand this because you're quite young, but feeling like I constantly have to prove that I'm worthy of love. And this is not just romantic love. This is like when I sometimes feel like I have to prove myself to my friends that, I'm really a very cool, awesome person that brings value. So, when you try to, do things because your friends must love you. I try by my family to, just show them that I'm not just this, right at the end sibling that nobody is interested in. I'm worthy. I try to prove myself to the different people that play motherly roles in my life, the different people that play fatherly roles in my life. So that's another limiting belief, is the idea that I am not good enough for love. Maybe I'm good enough for career success, but I have a limiting belief in terms of like good enough for love in a family aspect, in friendship circles, and also obviously in romantic circles. Obviously when you grow older and you go in and out, when you go in and out of relationships, then you start to really get a knock to your heart, and then you start to feel like, am I really someone who can be loved? So that's my third limiting belief. I'm very aware of them, and yeah.
And so like before we move on, I want to ask one more like final question on limiting beliefs. So my question is, because you mentioned how you have these limiting beliefs from so young, right? Do you ever like fully conquer a limiting belief and then like it's done for the rest of your life, or is it always there with you, like for your like is it always there with you and then you just somehow manage to deal with it? Is it like that?
That is such a good question. That really is honestly such a good question. So I think that the power of a limiting belief maybe lessens over time, but one should never get to a point where they feel like they've made it in terms of a particular limiting belief, because it can always come back. It's the same thing I always tell young people in terms of your identity. Your knowing who you are and figuring out your identity is not something that you figure out once and it's then solid and you're sorted for the rest of your life. It's a continuous journey. So you're going to figure out who you are, but as you live, things are going to happen to you that are going to make you feel like you're not that person. And so you're going to constantly have to be reminding yourself of who you are and your place in the world and things like that. So it's the same with limiting beliefs. Yes, you could get really, really, really good at overcoming certain limiting beliefs, but I don't want to say you never actually really, like they never really go away, but one must be cautious of feeling like that's not a problem they have anymore, and going about their life and then realizing only 20 years later that, oh, actually I thought I was good in that thing and I didn't need to watch out for it, but it was actually still affecting me. So it's a constant reminder that you have to, but you definitely can, like some limiting beliefs that, like for instance, the limiting belief of like being young and so forth. I'm now really getting to a point where I'm just like, yeah, I'm young, and so I still bring a lot to the table. So that doesn't impact me as much as all the other limiting beliefs, or it doesn't impact me like the first time I first felt it. But you do become more, you do get more stronger in it, and you can overcome it. But don't get to a point where you feel like you've got it and you don't have to constantly work on yourself to put that limiting aside.
I guess a quick analogy on that could be like, I guess like why you sweep your house daily or something. Because if you ever stop cleaning your house, then the dust's gonna accumulate and everything. So eventually you're gonna have to. The problem's gonna come back again. So it's kind of like maintaining.
Absolutely.
And the reason I can think about this is because my mom always gets me to do the chores at home. So yeah.
It's actually a very good example. It's the same with it's the same with exercising or like running. If you think that you have run 10 kilometers, or I don't know what's the metric system you guys use that side, that you can always run it faster, you can always run it better. But if you stop practicing, then you are less, you're gonna get bad at it.
Really understand.
Mbali, so just now you mentioned your love limiting beliefs. I would like to hear your thoughts, because I relate to it, because I'm sure a lot of teenagers, like guys and girls, will relate, because we would always think like, why are we not good enough? Why don't they like us? We will always want to impress others, because we want to like fit into the society. So we will always like shelter off ourselves and not expose our like ideas, like share our ideas to the world, afraid of being judged. So what are your thoughts on that?
You know what? I think another thing that I've come to realize in terms of like being a teenager is that those feelings are very much part and parcel of the adolescent years. You think to yourself, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not this, I'm not that, and you wanting to prove yourself. It's a phase, you know. It's part and parcel of that phase. You know what? How I realize that this is a phase is because I speak with I'm gonna say particularly women of different ages, and one thing I've noticed about, for example, you know, what you look like physically, is that a 15-year-old will be very, like the 15-year-olds that I speak about will be very conscious of what they look like. And at 15, they probably look really, really cute and really beautiful and have the fittest muscles, but they really, really think they don't look that. And then I'll speak to a 55-year-old woman, 65-year-old woman, and she's like, I don't care. I am living my life. You know, I look this way and it's fine. And so I think if I can put it that way, is to say those feelings are part and parcel of being a teenager. You will feel your emotions are still coming together and you're still trying to figure yourself out in the world. So you will feel horrible a lot more times than you will feel great. You will feel like your ideas are not great. You will feel like people are judging you. You will feel it will happen. But also, in it happening, I'm glad that you guys are in spaces like this, that you're having these types of conversations and you are pursuing being better, because it will help you navigate all those feelings a lot more. It will help you to figure yourself out a lot more. So you know, you don't want to carry those feelings into your 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and for your rest of your life. But you do, so let me put it this way. It's part and parcel of being a teenager, but you constantly want to be working on yourself in those years, actually, so that you don't carry those not so nice feelings into the rest of your life. But it will happen.
Oh my gosh, that was so reassuring. So speaking about teenagers, like can we talk about mental health? Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about mental health.
I, for one, am going through the challenge of juggling my studies with my mental health. And I acknowledge that how you once gone through what I'm going through now. So it made me really relieved and glad when I heard that you're comfortable talking about this, because it makes me like trust you, you know, like you're not trying to push it away, because it may be traumatizing for some. So it's very encouraging to listen to you as a motivational speaker, especially when you once felt so lost yourself. So what were some things you did to help you come out from the dark places to where you are now?
Also, thank you for opening up that conversation. It is such an important conversation, and I'm so glad that we get to have this conversation. I think before I can tell you how to come out of it, I want to tell you how much I've struggled with it, so that you know that it's not just like I want some, and then, you know, move on. So it has been a very big issue in my life. When I was in grade,
Oh dear.
10, throughout those years, I really, really, really struggled, and I felt like I was the absolute worst person there could be in the world. I felt like I felt like I couldn't ever do anything right. I used to sit in the bathroom at boarding school, at hostel, and I would cry. I would cry till my eyes were all swollen, because I hated myself. I hated my life. And I always felt like I was not clever enough. I always felt like I was just the worst. I was the worst. I was the bottom of the barrel. It really was very, very horrible. Those years for me were really very tough. And then I moved to the Western Cape, and I got an opportunity to live here. And when I got here, it came with its own challenges, and when I was younger, I faced certain feelings, and then when I was older, I faced different types of feelings, but still not great feelings. So I really went through like these seasons of just not being my best self at all. And I then started to realize that I actually have an issue with this. I think that was the first thing with me. Is I remember I was feeling actually physically sick in my body, and my sister took me to a doctor, and the doctor said, I know you are having physical symptoms, like your stomach is sore and you constantly have headaches, but I actually think that you are constantly having panic attacks and anxiety. That's why you feel like this. So I'd gotten to a point where my anxiety was making me feel physically sick. Like my stomach would hurt and I would have this headache all the time, and just I just didn't feel good physically, but it was actually because I wasn't feeling good emotionally. So your question was actually a lot about how did I come out of those seasons.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell my truth, and my truth is that I prayed a lot. I connected to a source that is bigger than me, because I think another thing that was giving me anxiety was the whole concept and the whole idea of, why am I even in this world? Or like, what is happening? Why are there people? So connecting to a source much bigger than me, or connecting or realizing that, I'm not completely on my own, helped a lot. So I prayed a lot. I still pray a lot. I really take time to say, I know I have this issue. So I need to make sure that I am proactive with sorting out this issue. So for example, if you have a limp and your leg is hurting, you're going to constantly be aware that your leg is hurting, and you're constantly going to be trying to avoid hurting your leg. So it's the same with our emotions. If something makes you feel horrible, something gives you anxiety, find ways to manage it. So okay. It's such a heavy topic that I'm all over the place. Let me be more structured. How I came out of it. One, I realized that I have a connection to this world, or something much bigger than me. That's one. I'm not on my own. I'm not just not just a feather that's floating. There's a bigger connection. There's a bigger purpose. There's a greater work happening, right? Two, I make sure that every single morning I take time for myself and I check in with myself. Like I said before we actually officially started, so I'm going to say it again for all the other people that might be tuning in, is that take time to have a morning routine. Time where you journal, write down everything that you're feeling, everything that made you feel bad, everything that's making you feel good, what you like, what you don't like, journal. And then do affirmations. The internet is filled with affirmations. So I do affirmations every morning where I actually say out loud, I am beautiful, I am clever, I am kind, I have a purpose, I belong, I am loved, I am loving. So you actually say those over and over and over again every single day, sometimes twice a day, and you just affirm yourself. Tell yourself that you are worthy. Tell yourself that you're valuable. And then thirdly, be very aware of the people that you have around you, the conversations that they're having, and the thoughts that you have. I always know that when I start to feel bad, I can track it back to what I was thinking about. Your thoughts are like these tiny little things that are always happening in your mind that determine what you say and what your life looks like. So I really have to be very cautious of what I'm thinking about. I have to be cautious of what I'm seeing on social media. So if I go on social media, I'm not following anyone who makes me feel like I'm not good enough. When I hang out with, people, I make sure that they're good people who speak positive, who are positive, who are encouraging, who understands, not to put another person down, but to be building each other up. So yeah, those three things. I'm part of something greater, having a solid morning routine, and watching the people that you are around, watching the conversations that you have, and managing your thoughts. That has helped me a lot in terms of my mental health. And then simple things like getting enough sun. So we live in a very digital world, but you need to get out. I sometimes will do this. I'll take my shoes off and I'll go in the backyard and I'll go take a walk in my backyard. I don't even go out of the house, in my backyard, but I just want my feet to touch the ground so I can remember that I'm actually living, I'm alive. And I'll breathe in and I'll breathe out and I'll face the sun and just let the sun, give me its vitamin C, vitamin D, I think, which is good for you. Vitamin D and vitamin C, I think, is what you get from the sun. I exercise. I'm not a gym bunny, but I exercise. So I walk, I go up the stairs, I turn on YouTube and I do a 5-minute workout, just and stretch. And I try to drink water and eat vegetables and food that's just not always fatty and always sweet. So it sounds very simple, but those things are key. Getting outside, getting active, drinking water, eating good. Those don't think that you can sort out your mental health in your mind only. You actually, it also is a very physical thing. It's a chemical imbalance. So it's got to do with the physical as well. Like depression is a chemical imbalance. So it needs the physical body as well. It's not only in the mind or the heart. The heart and the mind is very big in it, but it doesn't start and end there only. Yeah, so
I really think you mentioned about how you need to watch the environments you're putting yourself in, like the conversations people are having, what you're feeling. Because I noticed, especially in, I wouldn't say in my school, but generally, like when you go on social places like social media or when you're just in class, you can notice like people having some nasty conversations about people or certain topics or things. And like normally what I do is I just like, oh, they're talking, okay, I'll just sit here and do my work kind of thing. But what you mentioned, how it can actually affect you like later on, is something I never really thought of before. So that's something I'll definitely take note of.
Yeah. And you know what? I think because I'm speaking to predominantly teenagers, it sucks not being part of the cool club. It sucks not having those conversations. But I can most assuredly tell you that, and this is not me being funny, but a lot of the cool kids at school are not doing as great as I am. And I was the whack kid on the side. So things turn to turn out very well for the kids that don't on the cool kids, or so don't think that just because in the season of your life you're not the cool kid, or you're not having those conversations, or you're not wearing those clothes, or you're not doing as they are doing, that you're going to be behind the rest of your life. No, it's gonna work out well for you, not being part of the cool kids, or not being the type of, because the thing is, teenagers can be so mean. My goodness, they can be so mean. So not feeling like you have to, put other people down, and you don't have to do all of that to get ahead in life. Being the kind girl or boy at school is actually gonna work out well for you. Being the kind of girl or boy who takes their schoolwork seriously is gonna work out for you. Because how teenagers will be too cool for school. Oh, I didn't study, or studying is going to work out well for you. It's really going to help you in life. Being kind is going to help you in life. Being good to people is going to help you in life. Not knowing everything about Justin Bieber is going to work out well for you. Like, you don't need to know everything about his life, or I don't know what music are you guys listening to these days. But it's not being in always is going to work out well for you. So don't let the pressure of those teenage years and what teenagers think is cool or not cool make you feel like you have to also be like that. You can be different, and it's gonna work out well for you.
I'm really grateful how you shared your stories and advices relating to mental health with us, because I believe it made me and a lot more watching out there feel a lot more better now, knowing that you went through what we went through and things are going to turn out just right.
Also, how we don't really have to care about being in the cool kids club or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yes. Next question. I want to ask you, because you mentioned about the thing I elaborated on just now also, about how us, especially teenagers, are more exposed to these toxic environments. Should we be if we see our friend saying something not so nice, more negative, we letting them know hey, maybe don't say that, that's a bad thing, or do we just take our string of connection and just chop it off? So what do you recommend, us, or it doesn't have to be kids, or adults in general, people that have problems with this do?
Yeah. No, you don't have to karate chop them out of your life immediately. So I would say start off by saying, okay, so I will always advocate for speaking up. I don't know if it's necessarily the correct way to go about life, but I will always advocate for speaking up. I also always advocate for communicating. Like I say to my friends, if I've done something, don't just be mad and start putting me to the side. Tell me that I've done something, communicate, speak about what is not making you feel right. So I would say, when you come across your friends doing something, that have a conversation with them and say to them, what you just said is actually quite mean. Do you think you should be saying that? Or I don't think that's quite right. Why are you saying that? Things like that. So have a conversation about it. Have a conversation about it again, because we are human and we do forget and we do make mistakes. And then have a conversation about it again. So give it a few chances. But then after a point, if you can see now that really this person is just not interested in changing, they're not interested in doing things differently, then you need to start saying, you know what? I see that we have a difference in values, we have a difference in behavior, we have a difference in lifestyles, and I think that maybe we will start spending less and less time with each other, or start gravitating to different directions. Because it's not always that that person is a bad person or you are a bad person. It might just be that you are too different. Maybe they like being a horrible person. Okay, not a horrible person.
Oh my god.
Maybe they like always having an ugly comment about someone's outfit, and maybe you don't. So maybe they should rather hang out with people that also enjoy having negative comments about someone's outfit, and you can hang out with people who don't necessarily have conversations about other people's outfits. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not that necessarily they're a bad person or you're a bad person, that you're different. So then you can start to really look for spaces that are more suited to your values, if I can put it that way.
So maybe it's not that it's like it's not that, oh, you're bad, I'm good, bye bye, chop.
Yeah.
More like
Chop.
maybe our beliefs don't align or something just doesn't click. So it's fine. Doesn't mean any of us are in the wrong. It's just like that.
Yeah.
It is what it
And
is.
and you give each other a chance in the beginning, because sometimes people do things because they don't know that they're doing things. You know, maybe this friend of yours doesn't really know that they're always making an ugly comment. Maybe they just grew up like that, so they make comments like that, and then you'll actually make them aware, and they'll be like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that I'm always making negative comments, and then they could actually start to change. So give a person a chance at first, and then see how it goes, and then if it really is something that just they're not willing to change, then you can start to go in different directions.
Completely understand. Thank you. We've learned a lot in the past hour about mentality and limiting beliefs, what you should do to combat them, building your intuition and knowledge and friend group and everything. But I think now let's talk a bit more about entrepreneurship, because this is for Let's Talk, which is a build up to Young Entrepreneur X Factor. So I know that you are a winner of the actual X Factor for adults. Can you share your experience of taking part and winning the competition? And also, how old were you then?
How old was I in 2016?
2016, you were 22? Because you're 28 this year, right? Wait, how long? Yeah, you should be 22 in my...
So I want to tell you guys the story of how I entered, right? So I've always loved business, right? Like really always loved business and entrepreneurship. And I had gone to some, like I was on social media, and I think I saw that there was some business breakfast that I could go to, and I went to it, and it turns out that Landy and Mike were there. And I saw them, I was like, oh, very interesting. And what I do is, if I see someone doing something that is just really impacts my life and adds value to my life, I could look for them on social media. So that's why I say that, you know, we shouldn't cut out social media completely. It's not like social media is bad. Don't do it. Don't go on it. No, there's actually quite a lot of good things that you can find on social media. So saw them on social media, went and followed. And I remember I was an intern, and I was still an intern then, I think. And I was like having a break or something, and I was on social media, and I saw that this competition is on. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna enter. But it was nonchalant. It was literally like I didn't even know what I was entering. I just thought, oh, it's nice, you get to travel. Ooh, okay. So then I entered, and then I just like, and then next thing I know, I'm getting a call from I can't remember then. I remember that, but the number wasn't South African. It was from some country. It couldn't even been Malaysia. Next thing I know, I'm getting a call from, I'm like, this is weird. Who's calling me from another country? I'm a 21-year-old girl. Why am I getting a call from another country? Who do I know in another country? I answer the call. And they loved my answers, and now I was now in the next round. I'm like, oh, interesting. And I actually remember, I think I was walking somewhere when I was in the call, and then I really answered, and then I was now next interview. I'm like, oh. Then I was like, oh, this is actually real. But throughout it all, it felt like a dream, because I it was like, this wasn't something that I'd wanted all my life. It was more like nonchalantly it just happened. But I think it testifies to the fact that I am the type of person that has not always, but since I learned that there's such a thing as personal development and aiming to be more and aiming to be great and aiming to make an impact in the world. Since then, I've really always been on this journey where I'm pursuing growth. So I just naturally gravitate to things that will make my life better, that will make me better as a human, and that will help me to add value to the world. So winning that was really, really absolutely phenomenal. And we went to Egypt. I got most of my trip paid, where I got to go to Egypt for 10 days. And that I can tell you that, you know what, when I look at the timeline of my life, that was one of the pinnacle moments. In life, things happen, good things, bad things, and some of them mean the world to you. Some of them you even sometimes start to forget them. I can tell you for sure that was one of the things that really were a pinnacle moment for me. Why? Because one of the biggest things that it taught me was that the world is so much bigger than South Africa. That is what it taught me, that the world is so much bigger than South Africa. The world is Africa and a whole lot of other continents. And it almost opened a door for, when you don't realize how big a stadium is, and you open a door and you come into the stadium and you're like, whoa, and I can actually enter. I am allowed to come in. I'm allowed to be a part of this big, grand world. So that's what happened with me with the Entrepreneur X Factor, is that more than anything, it opened my eyes to realize that I am part of a global world, or there's a whole globe of other people, of other countries, of different things happening. And I've when you're in school, you do geography, so there are different continents, and that there are different people, but then it actually became a reality. So what was your question? I just went on and started talking.
It was about your experience in X Factor, essentially, but I think you did cover it quite well. And I like that, like you mentioned how the biggest thing for you, and it was also a high point of your life, but the biggest thing for you was the exposure you got. And I think that's very, it's important, because what you mentioned also, like how we learned this all in geography and class in school, essentially, but I feel like you never really, even if you learn about it, you never really understand how big of a thing it is until you actually witness it. Like right now, we're talking to you, someone in a completely different continent from Malaysia, and I feel like it's crazy.
It's impressive. It's impressive that we get this opportunity to talk to you. So speaking of globally, I've heard that you plan to travel to all 54 countries to hold your business. So do you ever plan to travel outside of Africa and start a business there, or hold your talks there?
That's an awesome question. So I had a dream to travel all of the African countries by the time I'm 30, but I've got 2 years left and I've only done 4 of the 50. So I think we need to start being a bit realistic of what I can do in what space of time. So the goal is, one thing I can say is never change the goal, just change the method. So maybe now I can say, in my lifetime, I want to make sure that I've gone to all of the African countries, but I definitely still want to go to all the African countries. I'm extremely passionate about Africa, but I definitely do want to see other continents. I honestly, if I could come, if Young Entrepreneur X Factor was like a physical event, and it's happening in Malaysia, I'm also very spontaneous. So I would have said, oh, great, let's see if I can come. I'd love to do that, and maybe come actually spend time, learning about Malaysia real live, in person. So I am that type of person. I do want to experience other continents, and I definitely would love to do business in other continents as well, because the world is so much smaller now that we have things like social media and the internet. Back then you had to send a letter, and a letter would take months to get to a certain place, but now you send a quick email and you are talking to someone in a different country, in a different continent. So I'd love that. But if I'm like really, really being very honest, Africa has my heart 100%. Like, if I give 10% to the world, my 90% is gonna go to Africa, because it's my heartbeat, it's my purpose, it is my passion, it is my life's work. So mostly Africa, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to experience all the other countries. I definitely want to experience all the other continents and countries as well.
I guess that's kind of like taking nationalism, but it's like continentalism, I guess.
Yes.
It's good. I mean, it's nice because it's like that's your family, right? Essentially, and you never want to forget about where you came from and what raised you to be what you are. But I know you mentioned about actually coming to Malaysia if we do have a physical young entrepreneur X Factor, which I think this year, because in Malaysia we're kind of reaching like endemicity, kinda. So it might actually be possible, and I think it would be amazing if you came to Malaysia. So maybe, I don't know, we can like work something with our school or the teachers, try and get them to sponsor your school or something.
Yeah, you should come. You should come.
That would be so awesome. Would you guys be willing to be my tour guides? Because I always want to.
Yes.
And I want to eat the food that you guys eat. I want to see what you guys do on a normal Friday evening or on a Sunday morning. All of the things that you don't necessarily see when you travel, and you just only stay at like 5-star hotels. And when I travel, I want to live like the people live. So yeah.
I'd love to share our culture with you, but we also like to know more about your African culture. So would you like to share more of your African culture?
Sure. So I am so in South Africa we have 11 different culture groups. I think 11 different culture groups. I'm one of those, which is in Ndebele. It is a smaller culture group, but we are very colorful people. Do you guys know of there's this small little old granny. Her name is Dr. Esther Mahlangu. She once painted a BMW. Have you ever seen the painted BMW? No. Okay, so after this, Google the painted BMW, and you will then get to see a little bit of our culture. We're very colorful, so we're the type of people who our houses have all sorts of like very colorful paintings. So, and then I'm from a village, so we still sometimes cook food on a fire like you would on a campsite. When you go camping and then you cook your food on you make an actual fire where you can make s'mores. We still do things like that. We are very my people, and where I'm from is the type of people that are very much community focused and community based. So if you are busy having a wedding in your backyard, people in the community are just allowed to just come in and eat with and just come join your wedding. So they don't necessarily have to RSVP or anything like that. They can just come. That's how we are. And then we we have a lot of dancing in our culture, especially during December. And we love things like jam. Do you guys know what jam is? Peanut butter and jam.
Yes.
On bread, yes. So my people love jam. My people also love cool drink. You know, like the orange cool drink, like Coca-Cola or the orange one. Yeah, my people love the orange cool drinks. So the really sweet ones, the really sweet cool drinks. So yeah, though that's a little bit about my people. And we obviously have a kingship. So we are like, our kingship is under the president, but we still very much are like Swaziland. I don't know if you guys know Eswatini. Their whole country is actually run by the king, who acts as the president or the minister of the whole country. So we are a bit different because we live in a democratic country where we have our king, but he still has to submit to the president. But our culture still very much revolves around, being led by our king and the royal family. So yeah, that's a bit about our.
Wow.
So let's ask
The final
question. But if you raise something that's interesting, I might ask one more question. So this one is like a YX special. So every Let's Talk we will ask this question. It is: the right piece of advice has the potential to change lives. If you could give one advice to everyone, what would it be? So just a heads up, this advice doesn't need to be about running a business or being an entrepreneur or how to not be bullied by the cool kids club. It's more like anything, just something that people can live by or be inspired by, essentially. It's a tough one.
Figure out who you are and your purpose. Figure out your identity and your purpose, and live it relentlessly. Figure out your identity and your purpose, and live it relentlessly. Build a community. Build a community. You are not an island. You will thrive in the right community. So build a community. Have mentors, have mentees, have friends, have peers around you that you do life with. And be kind to yourself. Love and be kind to yourself and those around you.
I know I said that was the final question, but can I ask one more final question? You mentioned earlier, identify like your purpose, why you're here and everything, right? But what exactly is purpose?
How do you find your purpose?
So purpose is, I was trying to put it in a clever way this morning when I woke up. I was like, how am I going to say this? But purpose is outside of, I would say outside of the, how you wake up and live because, other people believe like there's a God that wakes you up. I also like to believe that purpose is what wakes you up in the morning. Purpose is what connects you to those around you. Purpose is how you find the world and the difference when you are no longer in the world. That is what purpose is. And how you find your purpose is 4 things. What do you like and don't like? What are you good at? What skills do you have? And what problems do you see that you want to solve? What do you like and don't like? What are you good at? What are you passionate about? What skills do you have? And what problems do you see in the world that you want to solve? For example, I like Africa. We've talked about it throughout this whole conversation. I like Africa. I'm passionate about Africa. Over the years, I've built skills in coaching people to be better people. And over the years, I've seen that I've identified a problem of people not knowing themselves, not knowing their purpose, and not knowing how to be the best versions of themselves. So I then can combine all of that and say, my purpose is to serve Africa, to make its people better people so that they can, step up and do what needs to be done to make the continent. So I was able to figure that out because I sat down, I divided a page in 4, and I asked myself, what do I like and don't like? What am I passionate about? What am I good at? What skills do I have? And what problems do I want to solve in the world? That will tell you what your purpose is. And one thing I can say about purpose, it's not going to look like mine, and mine is not going to look like yours. And it doesn't have to be one thing. I'm just as passionate about talking to young entrepreneurs as I am passionate about feeding kids. I'm just as passionate about feeding kids as I am about traveling. I'm just as passionate about traveling as I am about injustice. So it doesn't have to be one thing, and it doesn't have to look like someone else's purpose. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So, thank you so much for sharing. I'd like to say what I got from this interview. The self-discovery part was really meaningful to me because to solve a problem or find a problem, you have to learn about yourself, what you like or what you don't like. That way you can understand your problem so you can solve it better, easily. What about you, Derrick?
I think some major gems, as I like to call it, that I took away from this interview is that number one, you have to identify your limiting beliefs. So when you know that that's a problem, you use your intuition, your knowledge, your friends, whatever you have to try and deal with it. Also, your one piece of advice to build a community: don't live like you're on your own on an island, and also be self-aware, know where you are, where you're standing, where you want to be in a bit, and what you're going to do to get to that point. So yes, that was a lot of information for an hour and 30 minutes. I think I learned more in this than I would have in math class just now. But thank you so much. And also,
thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. You two did such a phenomenal job, and I cannot wait to see what else is going to come out of this.
Also, I'm not sure if the recording is still rolling, but I'm Derrick. I think we forgot to introduce ourselves to the recording. But yes, I'm Derrick. She's Chien.
I'm Chien. And we look forward to seeing you at our Young Entrepreneur X Factor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.